You think age slows players down. You think reflexes fade, speed disappears, and defenders finally get relief. But then there is Messi. At 38, he is still doing something that doesn't make sense in modern football. Not just scoring goals, not just assisting, but controlling the entire rhythm of the game like it belongs to him. And this is exactly why defenders still fear him. Because facing Messi is not about speed anymore, it's about decisions. And Messi is still making better decisions than players 10 years younger. From the first whistle, something changes. Defenders don't play normally against him. They hesitate. Even a half-second delay is enough for Messi. That's the difference. He doesn't need space. He creates it. He doesn't need pace. He controls tempo. And when you watch him closely, you realize something shocking. He is not running more. He is running less. But every movement has purpose. One touch to attract pressure. One glance to read the defense. And then a pass or dribble that breaks everything open. Defenders know what he wants to do. The problem is stopping it is a different story. Even when teams double mark him, Messi doesn't panic. He waits, and that waiting is dangerous, because in that moment, the defense starts to lose shape. One player steps forward too much, another drops too deep, and that small imbalance becomes the opening. That's where Messi lives, not in chaos, but in the space between structure and mistake. And even now, at the stage of his career, his awareness is still elite. He scans the field constantly. Before receiving the ball, he already knows where 3 or 4 players are. That is why defenders feel like he is always one step ahead. But there's another thing people miss. It's not just what Messi does with the ball. It's what happens to defenders when he has it. They stop defending aggressively. They start reacting instead of acting. And once you are reacting to Messi, you are already losing. Even top defenders hesitate to commit fully because one wrong step means he is gone. And Messi knows that. He uses tiny movements to control entire defensive lines. A slow dribble to invite pressure. A pause to freeze defenders. Then a sudden acceleration in a small pocket of space. No wasted energy. No unnecessary tricks. Just pure efficiency. That is why, even at 38, he still looks unstoppable in key moments. And then there is his passing. People talk about goals, but his vision is still the real weapon. He can see runs before they even start. A through ball that looks impossible becomes normal in his feet. Defenders don't just worry about him scoring. They worry about him unlocking the whole team. And that fear spreads. Because when Messi is on the ball, the entire defense has to think differently. One mistake doesn't cost a goal. It changes the entire match. That pressure builds up mentally. And football is not just physical. It is psychological. Even defenders who have played at the highest level admit something simple. You cannot fully relax against him. Because the moment you relax, he reacts. And that is why age doesn't matter in his case. His game was never only about speed. It was about intelligence, timing, and control. So even now, when people expect him to slow down, he is still dictating games in his own way. Not by running faster than defenders, but by making the move where he wants. And when a player can control opponents without even touching them constantly, that is a different level entirely. This is why, even at 38, Messi is not just playing football. He is still changing how football is played around him. And defenders still walk onto pitch knowing one truth. You can prepare for Messi, but you can never fully stop him. And this is what makes him different from every other great player in football history. Because most players decline in a visible way. Less speed, less stamina, less impact. But Messi's decline, if you can even call it that, is invisible in key moments. He doesn't need to dominate for 90 minutes anymore. He only needs a few seconds in the right areas. And that is enough to change everything. A single pass, a single turn, a single moment of awareness. That's all it takes. Defenders know it too. That's why you often see them constantly adjusting their position, even when Messi is not directly involved in play. They are not just marking him, they are anticipating him. But anticipation against Messi is dangerous, because he doesn't always do what you expect. He waits for the defense to show their intention first, and then he punishes it. That's why he feels unpredictable, even when he is playing a simple game. And the most interesting part? He doesn't force anything anymore. There is no rush, no unnecessary dribbling, no ego moments, just control. He lets the game come to him. And when the game finally comes to him, that is when defenders realize they are already late. Because the real damage is not done when he receives the ball. It is done before he even receives it, in the positioning, in the spacing, in the hesitation. That is where matches are won. And Messi understands that better than anyone still playing today. Even now, when he is surrounded by younger, faster, stronger players, he remains the one dictating the tempo in tight spaces. Not because he is physically superior, but because he is mentally ahead. And that mental edge never fades with age. That is why coaches still build entire game plans around stopping him. And yet, even the best plans only reduces impact. They never erase it completely. Because there is always one moment when the ball finds him in space. And in that moment, everything resets. Defenders panic. Midfield lines break. The structure collapses for just a second. And that second is enough. Enough for a pass that splits the defense. Enough for a dribble that opens a goal. Enough for a finish that ends a game. That is the reality of facing Messi. You can control most of the match, but you cannot control the moments he decides to take over. And that is why, even at the stage of his career, his presence alone is a tactical problem for every opponent. Because you are not just playing against a player. You are playing against a system of intelligence that reads the game faster than everyone else. And that is not something defenders can train for. And maybe that is the most frustrating part for defenders, because they do everything right. They track runs. They close spaces. They stay disciplined. They follow the tactical plan. And still, one small moment changes everything. That's what Messi does better than anyone else. He doesn't break defenses with force. He breaks them with timing. A half-second delay in pressing. A single step in the wrong direction. A moment of hesitation when no one commits. That's all he needs. And once he gets it, there is no recovery. Because Messi doesn't give defenders a second chance to fix their mistake. He punishes it immediately. Even now, his game feels almost effortless to watch, but extremely difficult to defend against. And that's why, when people say he is older now, defenders don't agree with that comfort. They still prepare the same way. They still double mark. They still stay alert. They still avoid leaving space. Because experience tells them one thing. Form may change. Age may increase. But intelligence like this does not disappear. And as long as he is on the pitch, the fear is always the same. One moment is enough. One mistake is enough. And Messi will take it. That is why his name still changes the way teams defend, even today. Not because he is the fastest anymore, but because he is still the smartest player in the moment that matters most. And when you look at everything he has done, everything he is still doing, one thing becomes very clear about Lionel Messi. He was never built to be explained in simple terms, because football usually changes with age. Players slow down, their influence fades, and eventually the game moves on without them. But Messi never fully followed that pattern. Even now, what makes him dangerous is not the number of sprints he makes or how fast he runs across the pitch. It is the way he sees the game differently from everyone else on the field. While others are reacting, he is already thinking ahead. While defenders are closing space, he is already calculating where the next mistake will come from. And that is why, even at the stage of his career, his presence still changes the way matches are played. It forces teams to think twice before pressing. It forces defenders to hesitate before stepping forward. It forces entire systems to shift just to contain one player, not because he demands attention, but because the game naturally bends around him. And maybe that is the hardest part for defenders to accept, because they do everything right tactically. They stay organized. They follow instructions. They mark zones. They track runs. But football at this level is not only about structure, it is about seconds. And Messi lives in those seconds. A moment where a defender looks away for half a second. A moment where the line steps forward just slightly too early. A moment where concentration drops just enough. That is where he acts. No warning. No build-up. Just instant impact. And by the time anyone reacts, it is already too late. That is why coaches still spend hours trying to prepare plans specifically for him, even today. Because even if you reduce his space, you cannot eliminate his intelligence. Even if you block his passing lanes, you cannot stop his awareness. Even if you force him deeper, you cannot take away his ability to decide the outcome in one moment. And that is what separates him from almost every other player in football history. Because most great players dominate through physical advantage or system advantage, or moments of pure athletic peak. But Messi's influence comes from understanding the game in a way that feels almost instinctive, like he is reading something that others cannot see. And that is why, when he is on the pitch, the fear is never completely gone for defenders. Even when the match feels controlled, even when nothing is happening, even when he is quiet for long periods, there is always that thought in the back of the mind. He only needs one moment. And that thought changes everything. It changes how defenders move. It changes how midfielders support. It changes how teams defend even without realizing it, because his reputation alone is enough to affect